Hey, everyone. Welcome to Go Ask Gabby, Volume 3. And it's the season of play right now. And we got a great question here of how to bring it's actually the topic this week is about sex dirty before. What do you do even before you get to the seduction? And that's why I picked this question today. Thanks for sending in your questions. Keep sending them in. It's a great way to get some coaching at no cost. And I just love hearing from you. And we're all in this together. A lot of us have a lot of the same issues, similar issues. We can relate, we can support each other, share great ideas. So this is Go Ask Gabby, but by all means, post your suggestions and your thoughts on these questions and my responses in the comments. Okay, so today's question. It's been 12 years we've been together, and it feels like we're more roommates than lovers. How can we get back to when we had more fun and were attracted to each other? Yeah, such a bummer when you're not attracted to your beloved. And attraction is one of those things, like the ocean, it ebbs and flows, ebbs and recedes. It comes and goes, right? And it is something that you can wait for, like when's that next train coming around? And it is something that you can also generate. I'm much more of the generating camp, but we like to consider it a game. And what game we're playing is bringing more play, peace, and passion to our relationship. So I wrote a few notes on some thoughts. So, first of all, yeah, it's the season of play. So let's bring some play to passion, right? We can be significant about it, or we can say, hey, all is well. We've got a pretty good relationship. How can we have it be even better? How can we get to that sexiness, not just the sexiness you had before, but even greater sexiness than you've ever had? So bring play to passion. Make some declarations. Play a game with your word. Let's have date night. Let's try one new sexual game a month. Let's do an exercise. Let's do a workshop. Make declarations because the commitment is what is going to draw you forward. One of my mentors used to say, hi, Skip Downing, great guy, and taught me all about this mantra here of commitment creates method. You don't have to know how you're going to get something done. You commit yourself to doing it, and then you let that draw you towards it. So, for example, Raj and I once, we had been married 7 years. We've been married for 13 years now, been together 15. And 7 years in, we knew there was that cliche for the 7 year itch. And we said, we don't want to be in the cliche. We don't want to start itching and looking elsewhere. That's not us. And so we wanted to have an intentional itch for having the best sex we've ever had. So in that 90 days, it's not something you can force. It's just something that you can stack the cards in your favor, so to speak. And we did a little research, paying attention to what worked and what didn't work. I learned I needed a lot of time. I needed a closed perimeter, making sure we had locked doors and privacy. There are a few different factors, things I liked, things he liked. Um, all sorts of ways to stack the cards in your favor for having the best sex ever. But it was that intention and that declaration that would have us look and say, well, has that happened? Well, maybe we should go off for a weekend or at least have a date night. I know some of you out there with kids, it can be really difficult to get away. So maybe there's other parents you can swap with, other relatives. But if you don't invest in your own intimacy, it's going to ultimately impact your kids too. So invest in that intimacy, keep bringing that play to passion, and keep making declarations like best sex ever. By the way, we didn't just stop at that 190-day game. We decided that was a really good goal. And so in those 7 years since, we have set that as our goal, is to every quarter have the best sex we've ever had. Now, not have sex only once a quarter, but at least make sure that we are doing what we need to do, whether it's setting aside the time or taking the class or getting a new sexy outfit or whatever it is, but we are investing in our intimacy and really playing full out to create the best sex we've ever had every quarter. No pressure, all play, right? We want to stretch, not stress. It's one of my favorite mantras. Stretch, don't stress. All right, another tip here for bringing that fun back, bringing the attraction back, is mini seductions. So my husband and I thought there's certain things that were great seductions, like if I came over and gave him a kiss on the neck while he was working. super distracting, and he doesn't like his neck kissed. He makes him go like this. Me, I love a kiss on the neck. Right? That's great for me. But we had to kind of figure out what were mini seductions, like the things that made Raj really, really great and open and intimate and wanting to connect both, emotionally and physically later on in the day. It was if I brought him a cup of tea or a cold glass of water, depending on the temperature of the day. Doing these little things for each other. Coming by a back massage, he'd much prefer a little 30-second or 1-minute back massage. But he had to learn to tell me, he'd lean out from his office and say, I'm going into a 2-hour work session. Please don't disturb me. And so now I knew when I could go in and give him a little mini seduction. And he knew about how to give me a mini seduction, as I mentioned, anything near my neck. It doesn't have to be physical, right? But just remember that foreplay is a 24/7 all the time happening. Just like when you're working out, you're either always losing muscle or gaining muscle. It's never neutral. And intimacy is like that. You're either gaining it or losing it. Every response you have, you're either bringing your relationship closer or you're creating distance between you. It's not neutral. Okay, so far we've got bring play, make declarations, and your mini seductions. Then big moments, right? You need to carve those out. There's that email that went around for years about the jar and the rocks and the sand and then the water and all of that into the jar. You remember that one? And it talks about the main messages you want to put in your big rocks first. So those big moments, those big rocks, is it once a week? Is it even just for a few hours or a few days or even quarterly? But making sure that you carve out a chunk of time, whatever the amount of time, however often, but that you're making those declarations and commitments around how you spend your time and money that actually brings you together. Are you actually investing in intimacy with your time, money, and energy? Okay, so you've got play, make declarations, play, bring in the mini seductions, carve out some big moments, and then talk. Salt and Pepper had it right. I'm pretty sure it's Salt and Pepper. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Probably dating myself. I did just turn 50 last week. But talk to each other, talk about sex. Raj and I, while we could talk about so many things and we talked about sex, it did feel a little bit more awkward than, say, talking about our other goals. There's stories and shame and all sorts of dynamics that come in that department. So it's just great to make it more comfortable to talk. I encourage you to take a look at the blog we have called the Romp Recap. Go to forbetter.love and under the content, look at our blogs, and there's a search function. And check that out because there's some great tips in there for how to play a game, not right after sex, but within the first 24 hours of getting it on, to look at what was the intimacy like, how sexy was it, what was the technique like, and doing this romp recap in a loosely structured way. You can modify it on your own to use and adapt it as it works for you. But to start talking about your sex life, not in the middle of sex, but just make it as comfortable and normal and natural as, oh, did you see that movie? I really liked the casting, but the ending of that movie was a little off. I would have loved the ending if it went like this, right? And in that process, you're not evaluating each other, you're assessing the experience, holding again the culture of all is well. That was great. And even better if. How could it keep getting better and better and better? Raj and I are 15 years in, and it's getting better and better. Thanks to Support Kingsbury out there who told me, I don't care where you are in your sex life, I promise you're just scratching the surface. It was like, what? Whole new world. It was like I had my first orgasm again. So thanks for that, Zipporah. I'm always leaning in for it being better and better, not like a pressure. Again, it's a stretching, not a stress. It's a game, it's an enjoyment, it's a delight. You could be spending all your time on fixing problems, but if you're spending your time on investing in intimacy, it's a completely different dynamic. We like to call it aiming for awesome. Fixing problems needs to get priority sometimes, but it can also be very weighty and pull you apart rather than pulling you together. There's a lot of blame and defending involved. Okay, so I have one more tip here. So we got the season of play. We've got make declarations, use your mini seductions, carve out those big moments, talk to each other. And finally, this is part of talking to each other, is interview each other. There's a fun list. There's all sorts of will, want, won't lists out there. One of my favorites is from Alexa Martinez. If you just Google her, Alexa Martinez, and will, want, won't list, and print that out, and both of you fill it out and then share it one night. And you can even turn that then into a menu, circle some of your favorites and say, let's do these tonight. Or circle some of your beloved's favorites and say, let's do these tonight. You can use it as a fun little menu. So I appreciate those questions coming in. Keep it fun. Keep that attraction going. It isn't always natural, especially if you have kids or the stressors in life. I mean, just the weightiness of the intensity of the world we live in today. It takes something to keep the fun and the spiciness alive. But with practice and as habits, right? I always say your relationship happiness is determined by your relationship habits. So I hope some of those tips resonate. Pick out which ones work for you, dump the rest, make up your own, share them with us. I love, love, love getting tips from other couples and other people out there. Send us what you're learning and your successes. What are your hurdles? What are your hopes? What are the victories? Looking forward to hearing from you all. And get your questions in for next week for Go Ask Gabby. Bye.